Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to discuss and do the revision of the related party disclosure of AS18 of your Group 1 Advanced Accounting new regime of your course. We will totally follow the exam oriented approach and also discuss how to deal with the revision of AS in summary notes. Let's start. First of all, we will understand that why there is need to disclose the AS18 related party disclosure. So what happened for the entity, that is any company or body corporate, needs to disclose is transactions with related party which have occurred during an reporting period, so that the users of the financial statement can get the true and fair view of your financial statements. Now what is related party as per AS18? So what is related parties? As per AS18, parties are considered to be related if any time during the reporting period one party has the ability to control the other party or exercise significant influence over the other party in making financial or operating decisions. So for exam oriented approach, that is for your May 2024 examinations only, we will approach to the exam oriented for this AS. So the question will come from this AS only from the five sub clauses of this 4.3. So the five clauses in which we will discuss these five clauses one by one with an example of each and get the conceptual clarity also. Now first we will read the points and then we will understand the point with example. So the first point is the party will be related party for the entity if enterprises that directly or indirectly through one or more intermediaries controlled or are controlled by or are under common control with the reporting enterprise. This includes holding companies, subsidiary and fellow subsidiaries companies. Now we will understand the point A with the example. So here is the example of your point A. So in point A, let's assume there is party 1 and party 2. Party 1 controls the party 2 by voting power more than 50%, composition of board of directors or significant influence. For remember that significant influence means for point A 20% of voting power plus there was and in the A point. So person also to direct the financial and operating policies, or significant influence means person to participate the financial and operating policy decisions can be gained by share ownership, statutes or agreement. Remember that in here significant influence means person to direct the financial and operating policies, whereas here means participate in the financial and operating policies decisions. So remember there is difference between these significant influence and these significant influence. And then we will take the example of this. So example we have taken this a example one is A Limited is controlling 85% of B Limited and B Limited controls 60% of C Limited. So in this case A Limited is the holding of B Limited, B Limited is the subsidiary of A Limited and C Limited is also the subsidiary of B Limited. Now we will see the related party. Here A and B are related parties because B is controlling 85% of control. We see that voting power more than 50%, so this is 85%. So there is related party because direct control is here. Now for B and C also related parties because B C is sub-subsidiary of A Limited. So B and C are directly related because there is subsidiary and this is holding. This is subsidiary and this is holding. For C Limited, the holding is B Limited, and for B Limited, C Limited is subsidiary. But for in point of view of A Limited, B Limited is subsidiary of A Limited and C Limited is sub-subsidiary of A Limited. Therefore, A and C also related parties because indirect control A Limited with its subsidiary B Limited have come more than half of voting power. So these is also related party. Second example, a Limited is there. A Limited have controlled B Limited by holding 70% and also in C Limited by holding 55%. So for A and B, we know that this will be related parties holding subsidiary relation, and for A and C will also be related parties, but B and C will also be related parties because in law we have studied that one holding subsidiaries in equal terms will be fellow subsidiary. The fellow subsidiary term come from your company's law. Now we will discuss the point B. In point B, there is written associates and joint ventures of the reporting enterprise and the investing party or venturer in respect of which the reporting enterprise is an associate or a joint venture will be related parties. Now let's understand this with the example. So here is example. A Limited controls B Limited 20% or more means voting power. 20% or voting power B Limited. So B Limited will be associate company for holding A Limited. C Limited is a joint venture in which A Limited holding 50%. But here remember that A and B will be related parties because of significant influence. The B Limited will be associate company for A Limited. Also A and C will be related parties because C Limited is a joint venture for A Limited. But here B and C is a not a related party because common associate and joint venture are not possible. So this was your point B. Now next we are going to do the point C. In point C, there is written that individuals owing directly or indirectly an interest in the voting power of the reporting enterprise that gives them control or significant influence over the enterprise and relatives of any such individual. Now let's understand it with the example. Since in point C there was given the relative, so we have to focus on the definition of relative as well. So the given it is on your study mat 4.74. Relative means relative in relation to an individual, means the spouse means his wife, son, daughter, brother, sister, father and mother who may be expected to influence or be influenced by that individual in his or her dealing with the reporting enterprise. Now let's understand with it example. Here in C point example is Mr. Z is controlling A Limited 25% and there is spouse of Mr. Z, spouse Mrs. Z. So for A Limited, Mr. Z is also related party and his wife will be also related parties. So here we are written here Mr. Z and A Limited is related party because Mr. Z has the significant influence on A Limited and Mrs. Z Limited and A Limited also related parties because relative of individual with such significant influence. So we have to state in the financial statement or give the disclosure in AS 18 that Z and A Limited is related party and also Mrs. Z and A Limited is a related party. Now we are proceeding to do the point D. In point D, it is written that key management personnel and relatives of such personnel, means key management personnel and relatives of such person will also be considered as related party. Let's understand with it. Example. For example, here A Limited, uh, A Limited, in A Limited, Mr. A is the managing director of A Limited, and A Limited wife is Mrs. A. Here, A Limited and Mrs. A will be related parties. Why Mrs. A will be related parties? The logic is that Mrs. A is the relate is covered under the definition given in the AS 18, which we have discussed few minutes before. So therefore, Mrs. A will be relative of Mr. A, that is relative of KMP, will also be considered for the reporting entity. Who is reporting entity here? We are reporting entity is A Limited. So A Limited will disclose that A Limited and Mrs. A is the related parties because key managerial personnel 5, and also A Limited and Mr. A, sorry, Mrs. A, there is Mr. A, sorry, there is Mr. A, and the point I was explaining is this, and this is second. Okay, now let's go to do the last point of this AS, that is A. Your question only will came from these 5 points. In point E, enterprises over which any person described in C or D, means any person, enterprise over which any person who is described in C and D is able to exercise significant influence, means 20% or more voting power. This includes enterprise owned by directors or major shareholders of the reporting enterprise, and enterprises that have a member of key management in common with the reporting enterprise. Now let's understand point E with the example. In point number E, we have taken 2 examples. The first one is Mr. A have the significant influence A Limited because he has 21% voting power. Also, Mr. A has significant influence in B Limited because it has 35% voting power. Now, here A and A Limited, yani Mr. A and A Limited will be related parties because A has significant influence. Also, A and B will be related parties because it has significant influence. A Limited and B Limited will also be related parties because same individual or K-middle person exercise significant influence, means A and B will be related parties because A individually having in both the companies 21% and 35% respectively voting power. Now in the second example, A Limited is there and Mr. A is managing director of A Limited and control. Mr. A also controls the B Limited. Now A and Mr. A Limited and Mr. A will be related parties because Mr. A is the key managerial person of A Limited. Now A Limited and B Limited will be related parties because individual person controlling in both, here act as MD and here control the B Limited, will be related parties. A and B Limited. Now on A Limited and B Limited will be related because I have explained that same person in before value point. So this was your 5 point in which you will get the question in your paper. Now discuss this is in further. In this, who are not deemed to be related parties under AS 18. So under AS 18, the following are deemed not to be related parties. First, two companies are not related parties simply because they have a director in common, unless, means unless the director is able to affect the policies of both companies in their mutual dealings. Means if director has the ability to affect the policies of both company, we will be say that it is related party transaction. Accordingly, if the common director is able to influence the policies of both the companies in their mutual dealings, then related party relationship exists. Second is a single customer, supplier, franchisor, distributor, or general agent with whom an enterprise transacts a significant volume of business merely by virtue of the resulting economic dependence. I will solve one question based on this. This was asked, I think, in the PYQs or RTP. So we will see the question based on it. The question was asked in your May 23 examination. May 23 sub part is 3, which is based on the concept which we have read earlier. Now we will read the question. In the question, it is written that ASA Limited sells the manufactured furniture of rupees 1 crore to Shasa Limited as per agreement. Shasa Limited is the only customer to Asha Limited in the financial statements. Asha Limited wants to present Shasa Company as a related party. Comment on the disclosure requirement. Now, in the answer, it is written that in the context of AS 18, single customer, supplier, franchisor, distributor, or general agent with whom an enterprise transacts a significant volume of business cannot be construed as a related party relationship merely by virtue of resulting economic dependence. There is an economic dependence between the companies, but no one controls or excessive significant influence on the other. So, in the given case, ASA Limited did not report Sasa Company as its related party in its financial statements. Also, the last point of the persons who are not deemed to be related parties is the parties listed below in the course of their normal dealing with an enterprise by virtue only of those dealing, although they may any circumscribe the freedom of actions of the enterprise or participate in its decision making. Now, providers of finance will not become under the related parties, trade unions will not become under related parties, public utilities will not become under related parties, government department and government agencies including government sponsored bodies. Now we will see the disclosure requirement under this AS. So if transaction with related parties is not there, means there is no transaction with related parties, we need to disclose only two things. Means on your study mat page 4.82 only A and B point will be need to disclose. There is related party but there is not a transaction with related party. Then come to the case where there is a transactions with related parties. If there is a transaction with related parties, we have to disclose seven things disclosure along A and B, means you have to disclose the A and B. Further with the, I will show you that what you need to disclose, that is this is your page 4.82 of study mat. And if there is no transaction with related parties, you have to disclose name of the related party and nature of related party relationship where control exists should be disclosed, irrespective of whether or not there have been transaction between the related parties. Also, if there is a transaction between related parties, we need to disclose this, means the name of the transaction related parties, description of the relationship between the parties, description of the nature of transaction, volume of transaction, any other element, and the amount or appropriate proportion of outstanding items and amounts written off or written back in the period in respect of debt due from or to related parties. Now here the only thing remaining is the transaction during period in which related party was related party. Related party was existence. So if there is a related party and the transaction has been taken, we need to disclose it. And if there is not a related parties, means we need not to disclose the transaction about related parties. Now I am going to do the question based on it, in which through which we will get the full conceptual clarity about this. So the illustration number 9, which is on given in page 4.83 of your study mat, the question is P Limited hold 22% shares and voting right in Q Limited, and hence Q Limited is an associate of P Limited. Now, on 1 April 2021, or you can assume any year, P Limited sold certain goods to Q Limited amounting to 5 lakh rupees. But on 13 June 2021, P Limited sold its entire 22% stake in Q Limited. Hence, related party transaction was ceased. However, P Limited continued supply goods to Q Limited subsequent to 13th of June 2021 and sold goods of 15 lakh till 31st March 2022. Consider the 31st March as the year end date for P Limited. So, what will the answer of this question? Now, see here. So, whether the transaction for the year ended required to be disclosed? So, A, no. This is because as per AS 18, the disclosure requirement under the standard relate only to the period during related party relationship existed. Accordingly, only transaction between P Limited and Q Limited till 13 June means till the related party transaction was established, because till 30th June P Limited was holding 22% of stakes in Q Limited, but after 30th June he has the company has showed the 22% stake, so related party transaction was uh, over. So there is no need to disclose related party transaction, but and the transaction entered into after 13 June are not required to be disclosed. This will be your answer. Now we will meet in the next AS revision.